Hey, good morning, Badger Nation. Sorry about the late start. We hope that you're patient with us, and we've so welcome back to our Wednesday kind of briefing. But before we begin the Q&A session, let me take a few minutes to maybe share some thoughts and even hopes for our Snow College community during this time of intense disruption. But before doing that, I'd like to ask something of you. So no matter what your situation, whatever your position is at the college, I want to ask that you take a few minutes to think of how, in the days ahead, that you will take time to care for yourself. This is important, and it's not just important to you, but it's extremely important to us as a Snow College community. Our jobs are important to each of us, for sure. But to do it well, we need to be healthy. We need to be healthy in our minds, in our bodies, our spirits. And the environment that we are living in demands so much more emotional energy. And we all want to do our best work all the time. Get that. But in a time like this, it's really easy to forget ourselves as we try to honor our personal and professional commitments. So I just want to say how important it is to all of us that you take the time that you need to seek balance in the very best way that you can, to breathe, to disconnect, to do less, to forego perfection, to let go of the little things that maybe are not vital, and to do what we can, but not to try to do more. Because at the end of the day, our community is only as strong as each of you are and we are, and we must make really our highest value not only the care and concern for every member of our campus, our students, and each other, but just as importantly, we must take care of our own well-being. You know, none of us have ever been through anything like this before, and while I believe we all know the why, right, of the personal and professional sacrifices that we're making now, but I think we also are acknowledging the very real costs. We have given up the ability to interact with our colleagues and our students in person and in ways that we value above all else at Snow. We continue to do all we can to help our students learn, but I think we feel every day the limits on that capacity of not being able to work together in our offices, in our classrooms, our labs, our studios, in our advising conversations on campus, as a spontaneous crossing of paths with students that might spark a conversation or a new idea. And our commitment to our students is undiminished, no doubt, but we have lost so many of the ways in which it is normally expressed. And I think it's important that we all take some time to reflect on that loss. Our students feel it and feel it profoundly. And I would encourage all of us to find the moments when we can talk with them about this. They need those opportunities. And we, as their teachers, their mentors, their advisors, those that they look up to us, we need them too. And we all need to know that we're experiencing this together. And at the same time, even as we continue to pursue, our work and our classes, we need to acknowledge the terrible context that events in our world have imposed on that work for all of us, as faculty, as staff, as students alike. These realities impact us collectively, but also differently, based on our own circumstances. I know that all of us have talked to students who are confronting serious personal challenges of all kinds. Their individual needs might vary greatly. Some are struggling with their academic work in ways that they never would have before. Others need the structure and the significance of that work in their lives more than they may have realized. And we may have not realized the structure that this brought to us. I mean, more than that. I believe that what we can best hope is to meet our students where they are. And as you may have already heard, the college has temporarily changed its position to allow students to request a pass-fail grading at the end of the semester, and to remove other restrictions on pass-fail grades. Not all students will need or want these options. And as an institution, we don't want to impose them. But for many students, knowing that they may consider this option will help relieve some of the stress that they're feeling. who knew just a few weeks ago, none of us could have imagined the circumstances that we face now. But at the same time, few of us could have imagined the kind of changes that we've been able to make in the ways that we do our work, which, by the way, I think we've undertaken with incredible speed and skill and success. I know that we're only kind of at the beginning of this, but in that beginning, we have so very much to be proud of. There's a long road ahead of us, which we'll travel together, united by that Snow spirit of student success. And as a community, I ask that we recognize now not only this shared purpose, but also the need along the way to care for each other, and just as importantly, to care for ourselves. We have a noble mission to help our students, but we can only do that when we remember to attend to our whole lives and not just the lives of our profession. To serve our students, we must remember how daunting the challenges facing them and facing us as their teachers and as people. And perhaps to ask a little bit less of ourselves, to forgive the compromises that we must all make to stay whole and be fully present in all aspects of our lives, which have been so disrupted, including but not limited to our classes and our work. This can be a time for creativity and inspiration, but also for empathy and understanding for our students and ourselves, and for pragmatism about what we can do and what we can't. And I believe if we hold to these principles, that we can look back on this time and know that we did our best and most honorable work of our lives. So finally, as we get into this, I want to just say thank you for all that you've done for our students and for each other. I'm inspired by that. Thanks for all that you continue to do every day and that you'll do in the days ahead. And for the care that you take for your families and the time that you take for yourself. For not only what you have done, but the things that you choose to put aside that must be foregone, however regretfully. But not to do more. In this, please know that you have the profound gratitude and support of Snow College in every way. And so with that sort of preamble, I'd like to kind of outline a little bit of the format today. Those that have been with us before know that as you have questions, please write them as that allows the feature on this program. We will collect them, we'll categorize them and order them, and get to hopefully all of them. And we have a terrific, while we have a little different format, we have limited the number of people in this room, and all of the other administrators that we typically will have had on in this room, we're actually trying to practice good citizenship, and they are going to be speaking from their respective spaces. We have made one exception, though. Our terrific Mayor John Scott is with us here in the conference room, and we will be talking to him personally. But as questions come up, we will take them, and then we will sort of go through them, and then we'll kind of toggle back and forth between this room and where we have Provost Steve Hood. We've got Associate Vice President Terry Clausen, Vice President Carson Howell, our HR Director Josh Hales, ready to kind of answer questions as they come up. So let me do this. Let me welcome our Mayor, John Scott. John, do you want to join us here? And let's have a conversation here about maybe the broader issues related to our city. And I want to thank the mayor for his willingness to be such an incredible partner with Snow College. He and his staff, the city, have been so terrific in in working with us. They've been very attentive and been participants in our executive operation command work, because as so goes the city, so goes the college, and vice versa. But welcome, Mayor. It's nice to have you with us, and we have almost 200 attendees that are watching us. And do you have any thoughts for them? They could be from our valley, but they could be from anywhere, especially if students are dialing in from wherever they are. But we thought it would be important to introduce you and to maybe have you give some thoughts.
Thank you, President. Appreciate it. Just a couple things that we'd really like to bring up with you, and that is we're revising our general plan for the city. We've sent a link to Marcy, and if we can encourage students to take that general plan, that's part of the requirement of reformulating that plan for Ephraim, is that we have input from all segments of Ephraim City residents, and students are an important part of that. So if we could encourage students to do that. The second thing that we would really like to encourage is that they take the census.
Yeah.
We have a lobbying group in Washington, D.C. that is trying. I just sent a letter to congressional representatives, and we're trying to see if we can make an exception with the census and have till September 30th to take the census. But so far, we don't have any definitive answers on that. Other than that, Ephraim City is running with a skeleton crew. We're practicing social distancing. We're doing everything in our part to make sure that the spread of this virus is limited, if it even comes. And we're hoping it never comes to Sanpete. But we're wanting to limit that. But having said that, like you, we have all services available, and we're going to be able to handle any problem that comes up.
That's good. Well, we do have, we want to remind our viewers to make sure that they are constantly checking the Snow College website. I don't know whether the city has a website as well. I'm sure you do.
Yes, we do.
That is updated several times a day. So if you just on your search engine look at Snow College coronavirus, or just get on the website, and we want to make sure that they're also staying away, for spring break and Easter, that you're practicing. And there's a lot of temptation to go to national parks, state parks. What would you say to folks about that?
Well, the state parks are closed. I would stay put. I would not invite families over for Easter. I would be very careful about that. The problem with this virus is that it's pernicious from the standpoint that we're thinking 25% of the population could be carriers but be asymptomatic. And so as hard as this is, I've had to deal with this with my own family. As hard as this is, you may have a child or somebody that comes over for an Easter celebration that actually is infected but is not showing symptoms. And so we really encourage you to limit those people that you welcome into your home. Very definitely be very careful as you're out in society. Wash your hands 20 seconds. Every time you come into your home, make sure your hands get washed, or if you don't have the ability to do that immediately, make sure you have hand sanitizer, alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Just be cautious. These face masks that the governor is now encouraging everybody to wear. Let me demonstrate this right here.
And all of us have practiced creating our own, right?
Yeah. And some of you have face masks on now, but I think it's important that we practice that we don't discount that. Even though the virus may not be publicly here, it probably is here. And and we'll probably have our first cases. We hope not, but we're prepared to have our first cases within the next couple of weeks.
So currently, we don't have any
No.
confirmed cases in Sanpete, but your conversations with health officials here and our hospitals, what are you hearing? And you know, as you thought through your own sort of scenario planning, what can you tell people about our capacity of preparedness for a rural county like ours, which probably would be pretty similar to Sevier County or
Right.
Juab or Miller or the other counties that we serve, Wayne and Paiute. How prepared are we, and what would you say?
I think particularly the IHC hospital system is very prepared to handle an outbreak and an increase of cases. The first thing is that if you feel like you have the virus and you have the symptoms, I would log on to the IHC website that's been broadcast throughout social media. It's on your Facebook feed. And I would take the survey. And if you match up what they're telling me, if the survey shows that you have a potential COVID-19 case, then call your physician. Do not go to your physician's office. That's really important. Call your physician. You'll have a conversation with your physician, and under your physician's direction, you may be sent to have some testing done. My wife and I became extremely sick over spring break, and we showed many of the symptoms of COVID-19, but we didn't show all of them. And so we went through that process, and we were told you don't qualify. And so we stayed at home until those symptoms disappeared, and it was a long process. It was a good cold, but it was not COVID-19. If there is respiratory failure as part of the virus, that's what triggers hospitalization, and that hospitalization will be under the direction of your doctor. And at least with the IHC group, they have protocols that they're handling that with.
So all the more important that we flatten the curve. We talk about that, especially
Yeah.
in places like Sanpete or some of these smaller places, because if we all get it at the same time and we overwhelm, the clinics in Gunnison or Mount Pleasant, that's when it gets to be more dangerous.
Very much.
Because they just can't get to everybody. And so again, social distancing works. We're starting to see from New York and other places that are starting to decline that those measures do work. So don't dismiss that advice. We can be often very overconfident. We say, let's not affecting me, so it must not be affecting anybody else. But conversations that we've had with people frontline, healthcare workers in these urban centers,
Mm-hmm.
it's very dire. And so we can't sort of dismiss it.
And it affects everybody. I mean, the Prime Minister of Great Britain is in intensive care today.
Yeah.
It doesn't discriminate as to who it affects and who can get infected. And so I think it's important to understand that if you go out at all, take the precautions. Don't take things for granted. Be very careful. There's a certain segment of our population that is extremely vulnerable. And so it's important to be cautious. It's important to be smart, but I think it's also important to live your life and to not feel like you're continually hunkered in. Go for a walk. Do your gardening. Prune your fruit trees. Get out into the fresh air. We're having a beautiful spring here. And I think that's important also.
Yeah, because social isolation will protect us physically, but it also has its downside, because as we isolate from each other and those that we love, then we have to take care of our emotional side.
Yes.
And that's where getting some sunlight.
Yes.
It's a beautiful day. Get out there and just have the sun on your face. Get out, breathe, just breathe. So social isolation, we have to attend to our mental health.
Yeah.
Because staying inside, oversleeping,
being kind of lethargic, it just has a negative effect.
It does. It does. And I teach at an institution adjacent to Snow. And so I am having virtual classes with students, and it's affecting our students. It really is. And they're feeling isolated. And this is a population that does not like to be isolated. And so be aware, I think, of your students and what they're facing and what they're feeling particularly. I've had several that have had crises, major crises during this period of time. And so maybe reaching out to those students via, FaceTime or a phone call or something like that, I think would be extremely important at this time.
We've got some questions coming up, but I also want to just say there's one person that says, not a question, but thank you, Mayor Scott, for all you do for the city workers and the college. Your care and hard work does not go unnoticed. So that thank you for your good leadership, in our city. There are some questions about certain services, the DMV, for example. Does the DMV provide services, and if so, how?
They are providing services. They are providing drive up and here in Ephraim, and so that is an important service. Will rural mobile testing come to Ephraim? It's already here. The clinic here in connection with IHC has set up a drive-through testing. Again, that is something that your doctor would recommend, would have to recommend.
So you'll rush over there and the testing won't happen.
Yeah. It needs to come with the doctor's referral.
So it's mobile. So it's a different, but it's a schedule.
Yeah. It's they set those. It's a tent. I set it up in the parking lot. About I think it's been a week.
I see. So it's not mobile in the sense that you've got some sort of unit roaming around,
Right.
but it is where people can drive through. Correct. And that will be in the Mount Pleasant.
No, it's here in Ephraim.
Oh, it's here in Ephraim.
Yes.
Okay.
It's at the clinic in Ephraim.
At the clinic. Okay.
We're one of the designated areas for Sanpete County.
And I think as we get more tests available, I think we'll be able to get a grip on this a little better.
Very much.
But in the meantime, we don't have a test for everybody, right? So that has to be in the direction of your facility.
That's becoming though. It's becoming more and more that we will have testing for everybody. They're working on that, but it's a slow ramp-up process.
Well, listen, we've got stay with me here because as questions might come, just there may be some other questions, but there's other questions related to our operations here at the college, what students and staff might be expecting or wanting to know. But I want to actually start off with Josh Hales because Josh has the assignment today of all the humor material. He is our designated comedian. So El Bendito, what do you say, Josh? And my hands are up. You can have my money. Whatever you want.
Well, President, sometimes people assume that just because I have 4 kids that I only tell dad jokes. But I don't always tell dad jokes. But when I do, he always laughs. So. Anyway. So. One of the questions we've got is, last week we announced our policy to comply with the FSCRA, and there was a question on whether students are going to qualify for those types of leave as well. And I would say we don't have a firm answer on that yet. I haven't seen anything that would exclude students from qualifying. But we're still getting clarification from federal authorities every day. So I'm not going to give a definite answer on that yet. But just know, if students do need it, go ahead and put in the application, and we'll look at those on a case-by-case basis.
Great. Well, thank you. And keep those questions coming, and we can bring Josh back as things come to you. It looks like we're having some problems with some sound, so bear with us on this as we get to it. So I'm going to try and pitch it over to my colleagues that might have a better sound connection. So, Provost Hood, maybe we can come to you now. There's some questions about summer online. What are our plans for summer?
Yes, we are going to go ahead and have our summer courses just as they're scheduled in the on the website, with one exception. They're all going to be either online or remote learning. So just as we're doing right now. One of the things, though, that we do note with this is that we realize that this is that students are learning, that some of their faculty members are a little bit more adept at this than maybe some other faculty members are. And that's because some of the faculty members have already been teaching on IVC, or they have had online courses before. So the transition has been a little bit easier for them than it has for some others. But we're growing. With each week that passes, we're noticing an improvement in delivery of courses, and it's going more smoothly. So I encourage you to stay in those courses in the summer. Again, they won't be meeting face to face. We'll be having the same format that we're going here, but we do want to follow through with that and make sure that you know that those courses are still planning to be taught. A couple of students have also asked questions about board exams, such as the state-based nursing board exams and so on. Those are being scheduled still. And they are according to schedule. And if you are a nursing student, you need to check with your instructors to make sure on the dates. They are still planned right now. The state is still coming and planning on doing the examinations. That could change, but for right now, they are scheduled and ready to go forward. President, if there's one other thing too that I might mention to students. Students are, this is a really difficult time. Trying to adjust to this type of a schedule and trying to adjust to courses that are now being taught in a remote fashion, that's really difficult. And it's not what students thought was going to be happening. It's not what any of us thought was going to be happening. But one of the things that we're concerned about is some faculty members have indicated that the attendance in some of the courses has really dropped off more than is at a safe level. We know that you can opt for a pass-fail option. Those options are now online. If you check the SNOW app, you can get a lot of information about the pass-fail option. We don't want you to consider, though, that the pass-fail option is the way that you're going to get through the semester. It will help in the event that you really don't do as well in a class as you want to. But for the most part, B's and A's look better on a transcript than a pass grade does. And we want you to stay engaged in your courses. So attend those remote courses, keep up on your online courses, do the best you can to try to stay on top of this. Students, one other thing that we also note, before we've required, when you've been taking examinations online, we've required computers that have a camera, either built in or an external camera, to be able to verify security. Yesterday, or actually on Monday, the deans determined that that there were too many students that did not have access to a camera system, so they have waived that requirement. So now when you are taking examinations, you don't have to have a camera anymore in order to take that examination. You can take it on a traditional laptop or a desktop. For the most part, examinations don't work on notebook computers. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, it does not work that way. So, but great going to all the students that are staying right on top of things, and to our faculty who keep making adjustments. It's an unusual situation. We're going to get through it, but we're trying to make everything as normal and as high quality as we possibly can.
So Dr. Hood, there is a question from a couple of students saying that they sense that that faculty and some faculty really have kind of doubled down on the work, right? So that it actually there's more work involved in this new format than previously. Whether that's true or whether that's imagined, I'm not sure, but it is a comment, and it may be just a function of us, our faculty, trying to figure it out, right, as we go along, the right kind of calibration. But what is your sense there?
Yeah, I think in some cases it may be both of those. In some courses, because they're not able to meet face-to-face, and because in order to keep course accreditation, both with the state and with our entity that approves our courses, we have to reach certain learning outcomes. And if those cannot be accomplished face-to-face, it could be that some work has been increased. What we've noticed for the most part, however, is that students think that the coursework has been increased simply because they're getting it all online all at once, or that all of the course requirements are out there. For the most part, the syllabus for each course has not changed. The same requirements are there, and if they have been changed, it took the faculty member had to clear that with the department chair and a dean in order to get those requirements changed. Very few cases has the requirements changed. So what is happening is, one faculty member told me yesterday, I didn't realize how it looks, but when I put it out there, it looks like there's a lot of work, but it's just the same assignments that I've always had. So we think that it may be a perception issue for the most part, but in some classes they have had to assign some additional things in order to get the learning outcomes met, so that when you move up to a higher course, that you're prepared well enough to be able to succeed in that succeeding course as well.
Good. You know, the college has actually made a very, I think, dramatic stance or position on requiring the ACT, SAT score now for admission. Why did we make that decision, and why do we think that's in the best interest of students?
I'm sorry, was that question for me? I'm suddenly losing my audio here.
So actually, either that or Terry Clausen, are you there?
And
maybe
I am here.
Then Steve, you can weigh in as we discuss this.
Yeah, I can jump in if you guys can hear me. So yeah, we made the announcement. Many of you may have seen on social media that we are now going to be test optional for admissions. That does not mean we're test optional for placement into math and English courses, which I think is one of the bigger concerns. But this is really something that we feel is going to benefit our student population. Snow College is all about removing barriers and access to higher education, and many times the standardized test of an ACT or an SAT can put barriers in place for students. There's been a lot of research about the ACT, SAT, and other standardized tests that they tend to skew favorably towards students who have higher socioeconomic statuses, and really put students who are in need of our services at a disadvantage. So I'm really thrilled with this progress. I know this is something that several individuals at the college have wanted to do for some time, and we've been able to make this work. And kudos to our admissions team for figuring out how to do this so that we can benefit these students that have a desire to move on with their education.
So, you know, this is, we're the first to do this in Utah, but there are thousands of other institutions, including elite universities, that have made these tests optional because they just don't see this being a good indicator of student success. A better indicator of student success, it turns out, is the high school GPA. And even with the high school grade inflation factor, we know that students are likely to perform better in college based on that rather than the SAT, ACT score. And I think that there's also a psychological barrier. Some people they'll take the ACT or SAT score and score low because they may be poor test takers. And that may say, well, I must not be college material. And so don't apply. So what would you say to those students that may have had a bad score on their math or their English component of their SAT, ACT score? What do you say to them?
Come to Snow. I really think our social media posts and the things that we're sharing out there, you are more than your test score. We value you as an individual, and we are really, really great at preparing students to take those college level classes. So come here, get the skills that you need to get into those classes and do really, really well. That's exactly what I would say.
So I think this is a good move. I think about non-traditional students that may think, I just can't get my head around having to go back and do an ACT score or SAT exam. When first off, they don't, certain non-traditionals wouldn't have to anyway, but that's a perception, and we want to make sure that. So there's a question that's come up that is really well intentioned, and this relates to the recent move by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to bring back a lot of the missionaries, and the worry of this particular questioner is there kind of more pointed and direct strategies for recruitment? They're noticing the Dixie and SUU, and of course the BYU Pathways is very aggressive in targeting. So what is our recruitment strategy related to those students?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in the same boat that they are, and we have a very direct strategy right now for students. To kind of pare it down and make it easy for people to understand, we have a couple of different strategies. One is a yield strategy. Right now, our focus is getting students who have already been admitted to the institution to enroll. So we have some direct marketing specifically for those students that will go out via their social media, via print mail, to get them to fill out their registration survey and to get that going. And just so people know, we have registered about a third of our incoming freshman class so far. So kudos again to our advisors for doing that. And we just hope to pound that to get that there. We also have some other strategies in place to kind of combat what some of those other schools are doing, BYU Pathways and others. We have a digital campaign that we're working to get spun up, and marketing is working with me behind the scenes so that we can have kind of a three-pronged strategy of value. Why Snow College is a valuable place to be this fall. We have where we've announced our scholarship deadline. We are extending that to June 1st as a show of goodwill to students. At this time, many of them may have, they've been admitted to another institution, and because of financial issues, that's now out of reach. And we want them to know that Snow College is a great place for them, that is extremely affordable, that is going to give them a high value education. So we want to give them those opportunities, those students that have done a really great job in high school, and offer them scholarships. So scholarship for academics extended through to June 1st, and that will be going out. And then we also will be doing a strategy to parents to let them know about what we have to offer here at Snow College, the collegiate experience, the value, the #1 in student success. So those are some things that you will probably be seeing as it comes through. One thing to note, sometimes you're not going to see the same type of advertising that our demographic is because you're not in those places. We utilize some digital strategies that are kind of, if you've ever purchased anything online and all of a sudden you'll go someplace and you'll see that particular item that you looked for online and you start seeing ads for it, that's a digital marketing strategy that we employ here at Snow College. And because you're not doing those same type of searches, or you may not meet those demographics, you may not be seeing those ads, but they are out there and students will be seeing that.
So there really are two strategies relative to these missionaries, and one is what you just talked about, and we're going hard that way. But remember that Snow College has made a real commitment to Snow Online, and our competency-based online is being launched. We've admitted our first students. We have about 10 courses that are ready to go, and with that kind of delivery, we can actually put the price point a little bit closer to what maybe BYU Pathways And we're hoping that maybe we can really saturate or get to these missionaries of having Snow College online be an option, right, for them this summer, in the hopes that then they would, come here in the fall. So we've thought a lot about it. I appreciate the question, but it's something that we think a lot about. That unless if we aren't paying attention to enrollment, we know that we can't do the things that we can't do our mission, and so I really appreciate your team. There is a question about without the ACT, SAT score factoring into the scholarships, then what are the criteria then that scholarships will be based on?
So for this year, we're still continuing with that score being required for scholarships. It is just not required for the admission to Snow College. So if you still want to be considered for a scholarship, we are still utilizing those scores. And just a thing to note, 90% of our students already come in with these scores. So it's really not going to be an issue. Utah is an ACT state. Everyone takes it their junior year. Those scores are sent to us. They're printed on the high school transcripts. So for the most part, this is not going to impact a lot of those particular students. This is really for those students that would be a barrier to admission itself. So for this year, we're still going to continue that, although we are looking at what that will look like next year with our scholarshiping.
Which may be a much heavier emphasis on the GPA or
Yes.
other factors there. But the ACT does have value in the sense it may help us with placement is all.
Correct.
And again, like you say, most high school students are going to be taking it anywhere in their junior year. They're encouraged to. And we also know though that how will we use ALEKS as part of our math placement? If a score isn't submitted, we still need to find a way in which we can get a sense of where students would be placed in which math class. How does ALEKS play in this? And maybe explain what ALEKS is.
So if a student comes in and they don't have an ACT score or their ACT score is expired, they will need to go and register and take the ALEKS test for placement. And I don't know all of the particulars about that. So someone else may have to step in, but from what I understand, it's an extremely great way to figure out which level you need to go into your math and get into those placements.
So how else are we mentioned the missionaries just because that was a question that came up, but we're not. That's just one sort of slice of the demographic that we're going. We're much broader in our reach, especially in terms of underserved populations, right? So when we think about, especially with our Snow Online, we can now create more early college options for homeschooled students. Right, we can create more opportunities. We have an 1,800 inmate prison in Gunnison, to be able to reach and serve those. What about the stay-at-home parent in these places that So talk a little bit about your strategies other than just say the missionaries.
Yeah, so I mean we have a really wide brush that we use to hit all of these different populations. It takes time for us to be able to be as nuanced as some of these other institutions just due to resources, but we do try to make our messaging as inclusive as possible to hit those particular populations. So, for example, a non-traditional student who is looking to come back to school after, being a stay-at-home mom, we want to let them know that we're here for their success, and those are the messaging that we're doing across the way. Right now, we're exploring different ways to get those messages out. We have a pretty limited resource, so we don't have the same type of budget that, a Dixie or a BYU Pathways or an SUU has to, do radio and billboards and different things like that. So we're really focusing our energies in methods that we know that have been successful for us in the past to reach those different pockets. Digital is huge right now. I don't know about the rest of you. I've spent a lot of time on my devices lately, just due to the fact that I'm working at home. I'm on my phone, I'm on my tablet, my computer, and you're being pushed content all of the time. And that has been pretty successful for us to push that content to individuals. So we have to be very careful with our messaging to each of these populations. And so we're working really hard to have those messages that are really encouraging, that let people know that we're here to help them through this and get them into school.
So what about, you know, some of those are saying they want to help, right? Push the Snow College message and you know, the good news of Snow College. What is your recommendation? Because I think everybody has a social media account of some sort. And really it's about, you know, market penetration, right? It's about,
Right.
you know, one principle that I remember from my marketing class is that you need to have a message, hear a message about 20 times before you internalize it. And so if we're all sort of like, you know, hitting people with our Snow College good news, that's the way that we can maybe rise above all the other. We are at a disadvantage for other institutions. Right. We have no way to compete against head-to-head to BYU, or head-to-head to even places like SU. Believe me, I was there. So we have got to be smart, and we really need to be resourceful. And to the extent that all of us, right, can try and tweet something occasionally, or put something online, would be helpful. What would you say, and how would people help there?
So I think you actually, President, have a really great example of what people can do. As our own social media platforms share things, go ahead and reshare that. Put that out there. You know, our message about our test scores being optional for admission had really great engagement. It was shared quite a bit, and I saw it on multiple platforms by many, many different people. So share that, get that message out there. Yes, like I said last week, wear your snow colors, your snow gear as you're doing things. Get that out there, tag the college. We're doing this with our ambassadors and our Be a Badger account, which is for potential students, where, you know, we have current students or former students that tag the college and share, you know, experiences that they've had here, that gets out there, and then they tag friends. And so it's this continual chain that keeps moving and moving, and our penetration into the market, it expands. You know, this is going out. So I use an example. When I was hired, I had posted something on my social media account that I was going to Snow College, and all of a sudden, you know, my feed blew up with everyone telling me what a great institution Snow was, and what a great choice I had made to start there. So get that out there. You never know who's going to see that and perhaps share it to somebody else that's going to be impacted by that.
There's a question about whether the marketing team can make a social post, a social marketing post about the extended scholarship deadline. And maybe that's already in the works.
We are in the works with that. I know John Stevens and his team, they're working on updating the website, creating a banner and a social media post for us. Hopefully we'll have that up in the next day or so. And then please share, 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 share.
Good. Hey, I'm just looking to my colleagues here. How's the volume on our site here? Is it better? Okay. Sorry about that. We're working through the kinks here. Terry, thank you so much. Any final thoughts with our group?
Not right now. I want to say that I'm really proud of our team for working how they have during this really unprecedented time. I think we're doing a great job.
Hey, so Provost Hood, maybe back to you if you don't mind. There was a question about Richfield and summer. What would you say about the Richfield operations for summer or courses?
So for the cosmetology and barbering courses, they're doing interviews online for that program, and then they're going to be contacting each student as to what the plan will be for the rollout. There may still be some of the phlebotomy classes that they normally do, or the after this semester ends. But that's a little bit up in the air right now, so I'm not sure what nursing is going to do about that. We're just going to have to wait and see how that goes. Other courses that in Richfield will only be available if it is already on the schedule and if they're going to be teaching that online or through the remote instruction. So pretty much the same rules in Ephraim and Richfield apply for both locations.
One question is that if a student has frustrations, who should they contact? And I guess your first answer would be the faculty themselves, but what would you say if the student that is frustrated, who do they contact? How do they get things resolved?
Yeah, the very first person they should go to are the faculty, and send them a message over Canvas or an email, explain the concerns that you have, what you're up against and so on, so that they can have a chance to respond. If for some reason you're not getting a response, and we had some complaints last week from a couple of students who said they're not hearing back from faculty, and remember that the faculty are responding back both on Canvas and or on email, so make sure you're checking on both of those responses. But if they're not getting back for some reason, then you should contact their department chair, and you can get that information very easily by just going to the SNO webpage and clicking on academics, and then you can pull up the particular departments and you can see who the department chairs are, and the department chairs can make sure that you're getting the attention you need. If it's all too confusing for you, send me an email, steve.hood@sno.edu, and I'm happy to forward some of that information or some of those concerns that you have. I do note that last week we had a couple of concerns about information not being very apparent because they didn't know how what was expected in some courses at the end of the semester. And we mentioned that some faculty members have only got the transition completed for the first 2 weeks of class. Most of that transition now is out there. Most of it is through the end of the semester, but you should still check in because professors continue to make adjustments to courses. And so what you think the reading may be due for 1 week or the lab work that may be due for 1 week, it may change as professors realize that there may be obstacles that need to be overcome as we move through the semester.
Terrific. Well, thanks, Provost. We'll come back to you for a couple other questions later, but we want to bring Carson Howell into the conversation. Welcome, Carson. Any sort of preamble words for folks? There are a couple of questions that you can answer, but any insights you want to share?
Just thank you for everybody. This is an unprecedented time, and staff have been responding very well. Staff and faculty, students, I think it's a tough time for everybody, but I'm really impressed with what everybody is doing.
Good. There's a question about whether the Wellness Center is still open, and what is the status of the AC?
Yeah, so the athletic center, the activity center will be closed during the summer. There's also some renovations going on in that building, and so actually we're able to try and get those done a little sooner, and so that's why that one is going to be closed. The Wellness Center and other activities like that on campus. I know there was a question earlier about the testing center. Many of those operations are still happening. But you'll want to check the sno.edu, the coronavirus site. There's a link there that talks about campus closures, and it talks about what operations, what facilities will be open. Oftentimes it's by an appointment, so you need to call the center there to get an appointment. So the Wellness Center, for example, there is space there. They're still working and helping students. So that number is 283-7136 if you're looking for those services. The testing center also is available by appointment, so you can look to call them and schedule an appointment if you need services there.
What do we know about the summer camps, Snow Fun? What we normally sort of plan on in the summer. Where are we with that?
Well, right now we anticipate that we will operate as we are right now during the summer. through the summer. That's why Provost Hood just talked about summer classes mostly being online or remote. So at this point, we're not planning on those activities. But again, check the Snow College website, and we'll be posting updates on social media and on the website to make sure that everybody's informed on those.
Great. There was a question about whether, can someone get their stuff out of their AC locker? I assume they can with an appointment.
Yeah, we would handle that similar to how they're doing housing. So contact the AC for an appointment, and they'll help you get your stuff out of your locker.
Good. We're coming up on the full hour. We just have a couple of more questions here to get to, and then we'll let you get back to your day. Josh, can we bring you back in? There was one person heard that some supervisors might require temperatures being checked. Do we? What's our response there?
So yeah, checking temperatures is not off the table right now. And just so everyone understands kind of where we're thinking about this, there are a lot of employees that cannot work from home. And so we really want to be conscious of the fact that if we're requiring people to be on campus, we want to really take measures to keep them as safe as possible. Now, if we do decide to start taking people's temperatures, it's not going to be a supervisor decision. It's going to be a college decision, and we do have a lot of federal guidelines and things like that to follow. So it is something we're exploring, but we haven't really made any firm decisions on that yet.
Okay, I know we have ordered as a campus. We've ordered more temperature thermometers, but you want to describe the thermometers? They're not ones you actually put in your mouth. These are they determine body heat externally.
Yeah, that's right. They're the digital thermometers that you can take the temperature at a distance, no contact. And again, if we do go in this direction, we're going to do everything we can to keep the results confidential, to not single people out. But again, I'll reiterate, a lot of our employees can work from home, and again, we continue to encourage that to happen. But for the people who cannot, for the people who need to be on campus, we're really looking at all of our options to keep them as safe as possible. Yeah.
So who would administer that temperature? And let's say someone is a little high, what would happen then?
Yeah, good question. So we're still working out all the details of what it would look like if we did do it. We would have someone trained, so it wouldn't just be a random person walking around. It would be someone that is trained on the right privacy protocols and all of that. And then, really, if anybody has a temperature over 100, they should be home. And, regardless of whether or how we roll this out, I think we still need to remind people that if you're coming on campus or if you're going out in the public at all anyways, you really should be checking your temperature before you go out. And again, if you have a fever, even if you don't have any of the other COVID symptoms, you should be staying home until that fever is abated.
So the question is, well, how long do we anticipate people to work from home?
Yeah, so I think the projections I've seen say that Utah should peak probably in another week or two. And again, that just means that's when we hit the peak. That's not necessarily when we're going to be out of the woods. I've mentally prepared myself to kind of working this way through the rest of the semester. Hopefully, we'll be pretty close to being out of the woods by then. But we're still talking at least several weeks, I think.
I think that's probably right. So we don't have an exact time. I think, especially when we know that Utah peaks on April 23rd are the projections. But because we're in the hinterland, I think we lag a bit behind on that. So our peak may be a week or so after. We don't know. So that will determine. We may open up a little later than other places just to be safe. But we'll keep people posted. And I think as we talk from week to week, we'll have a better bead on that. There was a question about why is the Bergeson closed? This is the athletic center. And what would you say about the state guidelines for gyms? Because the state has come down on that.
Yeah. Yeah, gyms are really one of those things, a lot of contact on surfaces, and not really an essential service to keep open. Although, my waistline growth over the last few weeks would probably provide evidence otherwise. But yeah, it's just one of those things that there are other ways to get fit, and it's just one of those things that one of those places that can really kind of be a hotbed for spreading a disease like this. So unfortunately, as much as I really love visiting the Bergeson Center, and I hope as soon as we get it open again that it'll be really well utilized, because it's a really great space. It's just one of those that the risk reward just doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, listen, we've sort of running out of questions. One last one here, and we'll make this the last one, is what should faculty do, or staff who've been out of the state, right? So if they're coming back, how do they report? Should they report? What's your advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Go on the COVID webpage, the snow.edu/coronavirus, and really there's a link there to report travel. And again, if you've left the state, we highly encourage you to report that travel before you come back to work, and we'll follow up, depending on where you went, and advise you from there.
Terrific. Well, listen, we're at the hour, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll do this again next week. Mayor Scott, thank you so much for being a great partner and a great citizen. Let's keep the lines open about how we can help each other, the college and the campus, to keep people safe. People are asking about commencement. The commencement survey to our graduates ends on Friday. So by the time we do this next week, we'll have a position on what we're doing with a postponed commencement. Let us know how we can communicate better to you. We want you to make sure that you stay healthy and safe. Check our website daily. And students, please check your Canvas. Check it often. And there's a lot that can be handled that way. But thanks again, everybody. Stay safe, and go Badgers.